So, yeah, there's this incredible writer out there right now. He's available for download over at Amazon.com. Search for the author's name is Scott L. Robbins. He has two T's in Scott, L. period Robbins with two B's. He's a writer, and he wrote this series called Exit 13. And I bought the books. They're 99 cents each. They're a collection of short stories. I bought them, so it was like $3. I got all three. And so, read it over the last couple days while I was sick. And there's a couple of excerpts I printed out here that I want to read to you because it's just so damn good. And you should get these books yourself. He also had other books on there that I downloaded. I bought and downloaded. I haven't got to them yet. But one was called Ravings of a Madman. And another was called The Bunny Years, Y-E-A-R-S, a memoir. Search for this author because I want to read you a couple of these short stories. And some of them are pretty short. Like, these are two separate stories, and they're like 2 pages each. So I'm going to start with the least cool one, which is weird to say considering how cool these stories are. Most of them, a couple of them are longer than others, but there's also recurring stories that come. Like there's this guitar story that it kind of goes like backwards in time about this, I don't know, weird guitar. Everyone that owns it keeps dying. Anyway, these are selected. There's 3 books in the series of Exit 13. It's Exit 13. I wrote it down. Hold on. Yeah, Exit 13, Keep Right. Exit 13, Blind Corner, and Exit 13, Merge. I believe these 2 excerpts come from the second book, Blind Corner. But this is in one of the recurring stories called Simon Hart Cyndi, by the author Scott L. Robbins. Somewhere off another Exit 13, the small office of the motel was crammed with people, and the air conditioning did not seem to make the temperature much lower than the heat outside. The police in the office watched the 2 police cars at the other end of the parking lot. 2 officers had already entered room 31, and the other 2 were talking to the people in room 30. Inside room 31, one officer was watching Simon sit calmly in the chair, in handcuffs, as the other officer approached the bound and gagged woman on the bed. The younger officer who was watching Simon, looked over the table, which had a rope, bungee cords, and a handheld taser. One more senior officer carefully pulled the gag out of Cindy's mouth. "Now," he said, hand resting on the pistol in its holster, "clear this up for us, ma'am. Is this some weird sex thing?" "No," she said with a southern accent. "You need to lock up that psycho right this minute." "You shut the hell up, Jasmine," Simon stood as he shouted at her. The young cop deftly placed one hand on Simon's chest and shoved him back in the chair. The senior cop nodded at the junior. The young officer motioned for Simon to stand back up, and with a frustrated grunt, Simon complied. "Okay," the cop said to Simon. Now I have to place you under arrest." Taking Simon by the elbow to lead him out of the motel room, the junior officer began reciting the Miranda rights. The older policeman started untying the knots that kept Cindy's body secure on the bed. Simon looked at the soul in control of his girlfriend's body, and Cindy's lips curled into a smug smile that Simon had never seen before. Then again, Jasmine had never had a victory like this one before. "Oh, thank you so much," she said as the senior officer freed her left hand and immediately moved it to scratch her nose. Simon was being asked a question, but wasn't paying attention. He was trying to formulate a plan to get his girlfriend back as he was led towards the police car in the motel parking lot. Simon looked across the parking lot towards the familiar faces in the motel office. Anger surged within his chest, and soon expelled itself as the most vulgar words he could shout at them. "Hey!" The cop raised his voice and shook Simon by the elbow. "Do you understand these rights?" "Yes," Simon said, defeated. The young cop nodded and opened the back of the police car and shoved Simon in by the head and the shoulder. The door closed, and the silence inside the car gave Simon time to calm down and think. Inside the motel room, the officer had finished freeing the woman on the bed. He carefully helped her rise off of the bed. Once on her feet, the younger officer came back into the room. The older officer spotted a bottle of water on the nightstand and snatched it up to hand it to Cyndi. "Thank you again," she said, taking the bottle and opening it for a quick sip. "Can you tell me what happened here?" "Oh," she said, holding the water bottle close to her mouth, "that creep kidnapped me back east and has been dragging me all over the place, tying me up in seedy motel rooms." Well, the older cop started to explain. We have to take you with us to get a complete statement from you. Really? She said, looking over the younger cop who nodded in response. Standard procedure, ma'am, the older cop continued, as if following some rehearsed conversation. In that case, I need a few minutes to talk to my friends in the office a moment, she said, almost sounding like a request. The two cops nodded and took a couple steps towards each other. Jasmine spun with grace on Cyndi's heel and walked briskly out of the motel room, ignoring the glare Simon was giving her from the back of the police car. Who does she know here if she was always tied up? The younger cop asked. I don't know. We'll get the whole story later. I'm concerned about why he called her Jasmine when her ID says her name is Cyndi. The older cop shrugged, holding out the ID in question that he found on the nightstand. The young cop peered at it for a moment and shrugged. They both turned and started looking around the room for any more relevant information. Simon tried to turn around as best he could in the back of the squad car. He watched Cyndi's body open the door to the motel office and poke her head inside. Most of the faces lit up in expectation. Only the guy behind the desk did not seem excited, but still watched out of idle curiosity. Simon would have given anything to know what she was saying to them. My darlings, she smiled at their eager faces. I want to thank you for helping me rescue me from that sick and violent man. I have to go answer some questions for the police, and then I'll be back and we could pick up where we left off. Is Darren still with you? One of the faces asked of her. And my Jacob? Another chimed in, before all the voices started overlapping with desperate questions. Jasmine lifted Cyndi's hand and halted their noise almost instantly. She smiled wide and looked over each and every face as she answered them in her very general way. They're always with me. All of them. I'll be back as soon as I can, she said, and without another look or allowing an opportunity for response, she backed out of the door and turned to head back across the parking lot. She saw the cops coming out of the hotel room to meet her as Simon watched her intently for as long as he could. Soon they were separated as the two police cars pulled out of the parking lot towards exit 13 with the victim and perpetrator in separate vehicles.